Hello, for this week's video I wanted to share some insights that I've had from a parenting book that I've been brushing up on. This is by Dr Shefali. I have to say I love this woman and the wisdom that she shares in it, but I often think that some of the best lessons about being a human comes from looking at how we parent. You don't necessarily have to be a parent to be able to appreciate this. And I often think as well that probably some of the best leadership lessons that I've learned have been from thinking about how you parent. And so I wanted to just share some of the ideas that have really resonated with me. I think, how often do we say about, our children, or perhaps the people in our team that we're working with, that, we're really stressed because X, Y, Z, is doing A, B, and C, and we're kind of attributing our feelings to their actions. But of course, the reason we feel a certain way is because we've chosen to feel that way, whether we realise it or not. But also there's this sort of implication that if they change their behaviour, we'd feel better. So we might try and control them. And, any parent will know, try and control your kid. It generally doesn't work very well because children are all tiny dictators. But actually I think that's true for the people in our teams as well. Of course you can tell them what to do. But people have free will, so it's actually very hard to force people to change their behaviour so that you can feel better. So much better is to focus on the thing that you can influence, which is ourselves. And whether we like it or not, we are always going to be part of the problem if we have people in our team that are acting up, or indeed children. There is what we bring to the party affects how people behave. And really this comes down to, not being a dick or being the best version of you. And I think what's really crucial is, in order to be the best version of you, you've kind of got to know who you are and be aware, be aware of how you're being triggered by certain things, be aware of how, certain learnt behaviours might be showing themselves, be aware of how, default thinking patterns might be affecting how you show up. And all of these things are up for grabs. These are all things that you can decide to do something about. And of course, when you start to show up in a certain way, you influence the people around you. I often say, a large part of leadership is about becoming aware of what's going on with you, because funnily enough, we're all human. So if you're experiencing a certain thing a certain way, then you're halfway to understanding how other people might be experiencing something. But also, if you lead by example, I think that's probably the simplest and most effective way to lead. Proof of this is, if you've ever uttered these words about your parents, I'll never be like them. And then at some point you realise that you've turned out exactly like your parents. And that's because the power of example, that's because all of our behaviours are learned behaviours, which means that people also learn from us. So I think it's, leadership, I think, begins with understanding ourselves so we can understand the people around us, and then simply just leading by example. And then the final thing that I think is important, which is also kind of covered in this book, is about really just getting out of people's way. We think so much we've got to impose our will on people, but actually a lot of it is about creating space for people to find their own way, to find their own intrinsic motivation. And then also when they do that, and when you sort of get out of people's way, although it sort of feels scary and you're relinquishing control, you're also creating the space for them to find their own self-worth, their own confidence, because they're standing on their own 2 feet. And I think a really easy way to do that is, rather than just ordering people around, and this is something we did in the military, which we had to, but rather than just sort of telling people what to do, replace instructions with information. Give them information so they can make good choices. Give them information on what sort of objectives you're trying to achieve, but let them decide how they want to find their way. And again, got all this from a parenting book, okay? So it's amazing what is out there for, not just parents, but for leaders, because I do think that actually there are a lot of parallels. So I hope that's helpful. Yes, and by the way, yes, I am doing this while I'm on holiday. So you might ask why I'm working on holiday. Partly it's because I secretly love working, but it's also because I love what I do. And when you love what you do, it doesn't really feel like work. The main reason is because we're at a water park today and I'm secretly terrified of the slides, so this gave me an excuse to have a break. Anyway, wherever you are, whether you're on holiday or not, I hope that this helps. I'd love to hear your comments. Let me know what you think. Take care.